Okay, this is the first video that I'm going to make, screenshot video that I'm going to make for the class from some of the stuff I was going to cover on Friday. This is a newsletter template, obviously. I just chose any newsletter template from Publisher, from the templates that are available, to show you how this works. And there are a couple of things a couple of reminders about things, and a couple of things I want to show you about the newsletter. First of all, uh, you see that there are different columns. The first thing I'm going to do is go to my View tab, and I'm going to click on View Boundaries so we can see exactly where our text boxes are. I usually don't like to use the boundaries because I like to see the text as it's going to be printed. But sometimes when you're working with these text boxes, it's easier to have the boundaries on there so you can click over. Now this is the first story, lead story on the newsletter template. There was text in here, so if you were to go to Publisher and download this, you would have some text. Let's see if I can show you with my mouse. I'm afraid my mouse isn't very big, but you'll see just below lead story headline, there would be text in these three boxes. I deleted that text because I want to paste some other text in there. I want to paste some Lipsum text in there. Specifically, I want to paste more text than's going to fit in these three boxes. Because what I want to do is show you how to continue a story onto a second page. That's the first thing we're going to do. To make it easy for you to see where the story is starting and where the story is finishing, I'm going to first change my lead story headline, and I'm going to call it story number 1. When I continue this onto another page, I'm going to have the same sort of subheading, and it will be called story number 1, and then I'll put continued. I'll type in continued in by hand, but manually, but we'll get to that. I'm going to go to Lipsum.com. Oops, where'd that come from? I wanted to show you this, but obviously this is an ad. Anyway, let me go to Lipsum.com. And you'll recall that at Lipsum.com you can create that dummy text. I scroll down a little bit from the top, and over here, again, trying to use my mouse, I'll go slow so you can see. Over here is where I choose how much dummy text I need. I did play with this a little bit to see about how much text I need. I'm going to create about 8 paragraphs. That should be about enough. Generate Lorem Ipsum. Click on that button, and then I have on this page my Lipsum text. I'm going to choose that text, highlight it, and I'm going to copy it. And I can copy this a couple ways. I can right click and choose copy, or you can't see me doing this, but I could also use Control-C, which is always my preferred way to copy text. Now I'm going to go back to my Publisher document. I'm going to click inside of that first column text box, and I'm going to paste the text I just copied. I can do that by going to the Home tab and choosing Paste. I think I'll do that instead of doing Control and V, because at the bottom of the Paste button, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, my mouse is up there. The bottom of the Paste button, I can click on that and get my paste options. And what I want to do is, let's merge the formatting, which is the middle paste option. I'm going to click on that. Now you'll notice when I did that and when I copied the text into my box, I'm going to come over here into my third column of my story number 1, And you'll see I have the overflow text box there, meaning I have too much text in this box for this story. I want to continue this into another story box. I'm going to click on page on the right hand side. Let me do this. Make that a little larger. On the right hand side, I'm going to click on pages 2 and 3. And you'll see on page 2, in the middle, over here, there's inside story headline and then blank. That also had text in there, similar to the text up on top in the other stories and on page 3 and page 4 as well. I deleted that text because you'll recall when you are joining text boxes, you can't, for overflow text, you cannot put overflow text into a text box that already has text in it. So I had to get rid of that text, so I just deleted it before I started this video. So this is where my story is going to go. And to make sure that I know that that's my lead, I forgot what I called it, story number 1, I'm going to go to that headline, select it, type story number 1. Whoops, I don't know why. I don't know what I did. Wasn't paying attention, but here we go. Story number 1. And then in parentheses, I'm just going to do continued. I'm going to do a, whoops, let me do it this way. I'm trying to remember how to do this. Forgive me, I'm trying to remember how to do this grammatically correct. I believe it's that way. Or you can write the whole word continued. So the rest of my story is going to go into these 3 columns. And I'll know that it's story number 1 from the first page because it says that and that it's continued. I'll go back to page 1, click on my last column, then click on my overflow text box, and then I get my little measuring cup where I can pour text into another box. I'll go back to my page 2 where I have my empty boxes, and that creates a link. Now when I deleted the text, that the dummy text that publisher had put in here, I also deleted the links between the boxes. So I'm going to click on those 3 dots, those overflow text again, and do that. Now obviously I deleted that link by mistake. Obviously these 2 links stay together. Okay, so now there is still some overflow, but we're not going to worry about that. We could put that in another article, another spot. Say for example over here, inside story headline, but we'll just pretend that there's no more overflow text. Now one of the things I asked you to do on the homework was to add continued on page, continued from page notices. Let's go back to page number 1, and I'm going to click inside the box inside the third column of story number 1. I want to tell the readers that this story is continued, and most importantly, where it's continued. When you're writing an article for a newsletter and you need to continue it on another page, usually you're continuing it, more often than not, you're continuing it in the middle of a sentence. So you'll have the sentence going and it drops off and your reader says, where's the rest of this? So you want this little notice that says continued on page, for our purposes, page 2. Going to go to my ribbon, and you'll see the text box tools, and we have the format tab for our text box tools. I want to click on the text box format tab, not the drawing tools format tab. I'm going to click on the text box format tab. At the very left of the ribbon, we have our text group. And we have our dialog box launcher in the corner of that. If I point to that little dialog box launcher, I get the little tooltip that says Format Text Box. I'm going to click on that, and I get my Format Text Box dialog box. Now you'll notice we'll leave the vertical alignment alone, the margins alone, we'll leave the auto-fitting alone. What we're interested in is these two of these three boxes down here. Include continued on page and include continued from page. I'm going to click on include continued on page and click OK. Now if I zoom in to this, you'll see it tells me it's continued on page 2. That's exactly where it is. I can do the same to tell, let's say my reader didn't bother to read the first page of the newsletter, came to story number 1 on page 2. Where's the beginning of this story? It looks like an interesting article. Do the same thing. Launch the text box, dialog box. And that's again on the, I launched it, but let me close it. It's on the Text Box Tools Format tab. All the way at the left, the dialog box launcher in the text group. And I'm going to say include continued from. Click OK. And I have continued from page 1. Now at this point, I don't know what else I would want to say about what other type of wording I would like to use. Where is it? That's page 3, I believe. It's hard to see when you're so zoomed in. Here we go. But let's say I don't like the terminology, the phraseology, continued from page 1 or continued on page. And I have some other way of putting it. Turn to page 2. Turn to page 1, whatever you want to put. At this point, you could select this text and edit it. You can edit the phraseology of this. Personally, I like continued on page and continued from page. But there might be a newsletter that something else is more appropriate. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little more because there are a couple other things I want to show you on, whoops, maybe not that far, on this particular newsletter. I talked about contrast, and we talked about, well, I was going to talk about contrast and color, and you've probably watched the videos by now about color. By the way, I added some other websites, not videos, but actually nice little reference sheets for the different meanings of color. So you don't have to, if you don't remember what red means, you don't have to watch a whole video to see what it means. You can go back and reference it on either of these two websites or both of them to get an idea of what type of color you want to use. This newsletter, kind of a reddish orange and an orange. Let me see. I'm going to go to my browser and color psychology. Here we are. Let's see. Reddish brown, red is the most emotionally intense color, but we really don't have a red on there. We do have this brownish color. Solid, reliable, the color of the earth, abundant in nature. Really not a light brown, it's more of a medium brown. Brown can also be sad and wistful. Men are more apt to say brown is one of their favorite colors. Do we have the orange? We don't have orange. I'm going to try to use, well, actually, let me go to Blackboard. I can do this. There's the second one. Let's go here. Here we are. The color orange is the color of social communication and optimism. From a negative color meaning, it's also the sign of pessimism and superficiality. So we've got brown on this newsletter, which is solid, reliable, but also maybe a little sad and wistful. Where's this? And we also have orange, that's a symbol of social communication, but it can also be pessimism as well. Let's stay away from the pessimism in it. Let's stay with this more solid meaning, or the reliability meaning. Because honestly, I can't think of a newsletter that you would really want to write that's full of pessimism and sadness. So we've got brown that's reliable, and we've got orange that's communication. Okay. Let me go back to my document. Now, if we think about what type of organization or business these colors would be appropriate for, reliability, social communication, I'm thinking, you know, pretty much any business could benefit from that reliability factor. Maybe something that's well established. You know, you want to set a tone of being well established. I've said reliable several times. Something that can be depended on, yet you've got the orange, that's the communication. So something reliable and dependable and established, yet approachable. I can't think of a business, but I can think of a few things that you probably wouldn't want to use this for. And I'm going to change my newsletter title. For this, you probably wouldn't want to use these color schemes for A1 preschool or daycare. I really don't like A1. I'm going to change that. I'm really coming up with these names as I go. Kitty, let's just call it Kitty Daycare. It really doesn't fit. Now, if we change our color scheme, we might be able to get it to fit. I'm going to go to my page design, where I have my colors, and I'm going to choose something that's more appropriate. But before I choose that, let's go back and let's see what would be appropriate for a daycare. You know, I'm going to go back to the video. I'm not going to play it, but I'm going to go back to something that was said in the video. One thing they said in the video was the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, are very childish. And yellow is especially a childish kind of color. So you probably want to use something that's red, yellow, and blue. I believe there's a preset that we can use for this. I'm going to try Wildflower. I'm going to go all the way down. It's the third column, all the way down at the bottom. And you know, there's very little changing on. I guess that changes. You're still having that orangish. Okay, you know, I think we're going to create our own new color scheme. Before I do that, I want to take a look at this color scheme, because honestly, I want to choose what color this brown turns to. I want to choose what color this orange turns to. And I'm not going to know that unless I know which accent color is which. Let's go to any color scheme. Go to my Home tab. let's look at the text, because this is my scheme colors. Now that brown is accent 1, and the orange then is accent 2. You see, I can point to those at the top of the scheme colors and see that. So I'm thinking accent 1, accent 2, and maybe I'll make accent 3. Maybe these 3 are the ones I'll change, or that I'll focus on. I'm going to go back to my page design. I'm going to click on more color schemes, and then at the very, very bottom, create new color scheme. I want to change the orange. Now before we change these to red, blue, and yellow, let's decide what we want, what colors we want where. If you'll remember, warm colors stand out. They're more at the forefront. So you need less of warm colors to create a statement. Flip side is, if you use a lot of warm colors, it could be overwhelming. Cool colors recede. So if you want to make a statement or create contrast, you need to use a little more of the cool colors. Otherwise, they're going to get lost in the background. So I'm thinking we don't want that orange or that brown necessarily, because I would call that brown a warm color. It's a reddish orange. Maybe somewhere between reddish orange and orange, or somewhere in the color, but it's still on the warm side. So we don't want that to be red, either of those to be red, because red is a very strong color and it's a very warm color. Likewise, yellow is a warm color, so we're not going to make either of those the more yellow. Actually, we're going to need to make one of those yellow, either yellow or red. So now at this point, what I would do is look and to try to decide which has more space. And I think I'm going to make this brown my blue. And I'm just going to choose more colors. And I'm going to choose from this color scheme right here. And I'm going to choose, actually maybe I'll choose a Pantone color. No, you know what? Let's get into those later. Let's choose, I kind of want a true blue, maybe this one. And that's too light. I'm going to go with that one. Choose a blue that is appropriate. Again, this is a matter of personal choice. Already in this preview, the document looks different. Now the question is, do we make this orange? Now we have two, because we want to use red and yellow, we have two warm colors. Which do we use? For the heck of it, let's try with a red. Let's see how that looks. And what did I chose the wrong one. Let's go back to my blue here. It was that one. This is what I want to make red. Let's choose red. Not too bad. That might be, we might have to have a look at that in the larger preview, but let's just, for the heck of it, let's change it to a yellow. Honestly, I like the yellow better, but that's personal preference. The yellow seems less bold than the red. So now I'll make my text red. Actually, I will change my text color there to red. But I'll make my third accent color red. I'm going to save this. Much better. Now what happens if I choose my kitty daycare, go back to my home tab, and choose my red? I'm not sure. See, that's a little bit difficult to look at. So I might just go a little bit lighter on the red. You see, I have my scheme colors up at the top. And then down here I have tints and shades. You remember a tint is the hue. These are the hues, the pure colors. A tint is the hue with white added, and a shade is the hue with black added. Which is going to be better? That's too dark. I might go with that. This I might change to, well, let's see. Let's see how that looks with a bright red. I need to zoom in to have a little better look at that. That's not bad. The red on the yellow is not bad. While I'm doing this, I'm going to change all of this text to that red. While I'm doing this, I want to point out that neutral colors, actually they're not colors at all, but if to use that term loosely, neutral colors are black and white. Essentially they go with everything. Red and yellow are unofficial neutral colors. So when in doubt, you can always try red with another color, any other color, or yellow with any other color. I like that, but I really don't like this kitty daycare, so I'm going to go back. And what I might do, by the way, what I'm doing right now is taking you through the way I would design a newsletter and design this color. Maybe I'll go back with the bright red. See how it jumps a little bit, because that red and that blue create a little too much contrast. I think I might be able to calm that jumpiness down by adding a shadow. Not really. I'll use the undo button for that. Maybe embossing it. I don't know. Let me try engraving, just because I want to play a little bit. I think I would maybe do embossing or engraving. It kind of has that white, and it sets off the kitty daycare from the rest, from that blue. The red of the kitty daycare from that blue. What else can we do? You'll notice all these colors changed. You'll notice this didn't change because that's the text that I added in. Let me zoom out a little bit. That looks a little bit more like a daycare than the brown and orange. Okay, I'm going to stop this video because I've been talking for quite a while, and I don't want to, I would rather give you smaller snippets. I know this isn't a small snippet, but I'd rather give you smaller snippets instead of one long video. Let me stop this.